I wanted to say on with them, there've been accusations from fans, your club geeing them up for FFP situations. You've now got Crystal Palace coming out and saying that they've been poaching and tapping up Elise, saying they've broken rules and they're going to report them. There seems to be a lot of hate for Chelsea right now in the football community with how they're spending. And the reports today are they might reignite interest in Ollie Watkins this window. They're about to sign David Washington. They've got multiple players still leaving. I'm just going through reports. They could even be going for Diego Costa still this window. Like, where do you think and why do you think...
What Costa?
Costa, the goalkeeper.
Oh, I was about to say, I thought you meant the striker. I was about to say,
roll it back, old man.
Where do you think this Chelsea hate is coming from, KJ?
It's called one word. It begins with J. It's in both of me and JJ's names. It's called jealousy, bruv. You know what I'm saying? It's just jealousy. What they're doing is brazen. It is so American to do what they're doing. To come in, all guns blazing, making big noise, strolling about like they own the place. And the teams, they don't like it. They don't like how they're operating. They don't like the way that they're doing things. And that's what it is. The teams are just jealous because no one's tried to do what they do. Not really. Not at this kind of level and scale. Like they've apparently had teams of people go through the FFP laws and regulations and rules for the Premier League, for UEFA, all of that. And they're looking at how can we find ways to get past certain barriers that have been put in front of us so we can go and achieve what we want to achieve. And they've taken the time to do that, found the holes, and now the PL, UEFA, the FA, they're starting to plug these holes that were there. But none of our clubs decided to take the time and actually look through those things. And if they did, they didn't want to exploit them. But Chelsea have. So I just think it's jealousy from these teams. And fair play. If you can find a way to get to your goal quicker through holes and loopholes, hey, it's not their fault that exists. They're just using what's within the laws of the game that they're playing. So teams are jealous. Fair play for Chelsea. Will it work? I don't know. I'm very curious to see if this approach works. If this whole mass rebuild, mass squad build, FM kind of style save happening at Chelsea, if it'll work in the long run, we'll see. But jealousy, man, jealousy.
Mate, I agree with you. It's jealousy. Like I kind of look at it from the perspective of, let's say they are breaking FFP, but what they know is all they're going to get is like a fine and a slap on the wrists. Again, it's brazen, but it's almost, we know we're breaking rules, but there's no real punishment at the end of it. But I don't think they are. I think they know what they're doing. You've got to think Hakim Ziyech, he's on his way out. Chalobah. They may get around 40 to 45 million pounds for Conor Gallagher, which is only 10 million less than they've just gone and bought Lavia for. The crazy part is they've raised nearly 300 million in the last 2 years through sales. They're also being smart with these young players they're buying. And I've been watching the new Burnley documentary, and I implore anyone who agrees with Lee Gunner that the likes of Brighton and Burnley and Luton should spend all the money they get that comes through the door in TV money. They're crazy. They explain it very detailed on there about the amount of money that comes in and the additional things you have to employ. A lot of the money gets eaten up. And how the only way those clubs can generate enough income to keep improving over time is by buying young talent, developing them and selling them. And Burnley weren't really doing that. Vincent Kompany's coming in and changed their mindset. And the idea is you might only have a guy for 3 years, but you bring him in at 6 million, plays well, you sell him at 25 million, 30 million, 40 million, and then you reinvest that money in some more players. And over a long period of time, the revenues grow, you maintain your position in the top league for a long period of time, then you have more money to maybe build a sustainable team. And essentially, though, what Chelsea are doing is a combination of that and what big rich clubs do. They're buying stars, some of them young, some of them a little bit older. But they're also going right. They've got David Washington, who I've read about today. Didn't know who he was until today. Read about him. Highly talented young Brazilian for 20 million euros. He'll probably go out on loan. They will look to develop him and either play him in their first team or sell him for 35, 40 million euros. So in the next 3 to 4 years, quite a lot of these young players they've bought, who, by the way, are on fairly low wages. Lavia is going to earn less at Chelsea than West Ham are going to pay Ward-Prowse. So people have got to do their research before they say, how is this doable? They're probably I would say of the £1 billion they've spent, there's probably 250 to 300 million pounds of that. In the next 3 years, they will flip, like buying houses and flipping them. They're going to flip them and sell them for maybe 400, 500, 600 million pounds and make huge amount of profits. And they don't need to worry about that for the next few years. They've got new sponsors coming in. They're going to have the third highest sponsorship shirt sponsor in the history of Premier League football. They've got arm sponsors. They'll probably get naming rights to a stadium, naming rights to the training ground. Man City, by the way, have got roads and streets they own that they bought, their private streets in and around their stadium. And then Pete's sponsors name the channel like the Noodle Street, the Noodle Bar Street and things like this. There might be quite. There's a bridge that they own. Someone's bought the naming rights to it. This is the kind of things these owners are going to do. This is how they make their money up. And people have got to, this is the way I look at it. Instead of saying they must have cheated, it's disgraceful. My view is, why don't my club behave like this? That's what and again, that's why I think it's jealousy. It's more of a, how can you do this? You must be doing something wrong, rather than looking in the mirror and saying, my club's a joke, or my club should be doing this, or my club should behave like that. Listen, whether it works on the football pitch is another debate, and we'll have that. But from a financial standpoint, they're doing nothing wrong. And I believe, barring being a City fan or probably an Arsenal fan right now, you should be genuinely fearful of their ambition, their money, and their strategy to keep spending like this, because it's unprecedented in our times. And Chelsea are doing bits as far as I'm concerned.
You know what's mad, yeah? The whole young players hoarding, they've been doing that for flipping 20 years anyway, bro.
That's part of their DNA, man. They've been doing that. That's not
new to Chelsea. It's because they've doing it while spending so much money on a whole new first team at the same time. That's why it just looks absolutely mad. But this is Chelsea. People say you need to stick to your roots or stick to what you're good at, what you know, blah, 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 blah. This is Chelsea Football Club. It's a Chelsea thing, they like to say. Roman brought this in, it got them success, and Todd Bowley is doing the same thing but slightly different. Instead of just buying up stars like everywhere, he's also trying to add the young youth element to it as well, with like all these young players. Fair play. I'm not mad. I'm more curious than I am angry. Hey fam, if the Glazers were doing this, do you think I'll be Glazers out?
But that's what it is. That's what it is. But that's what it is. That's what I'm saying. Me talking about FFP is tongue in cheek. But if we're being honest,
I know. Yeah.
And people in the comments are getting a bit, excited. But yeah, it's like, look, that's how you want your club to run. Like if you wouldn't really care. It's like with Liverpool, when Liverpool are able to go and get 30 million for Brewster that kicked and played for Liverpool twice in his whole career and stuff. You got to question, how were Liverpool able to go and do that? It's because Liverpool were finding loopholes and ways in which they were able to go and do that, or how were we able to go and get certain players for such a little amount of money in comparison to other teams. It's the same type of thing. It's using your kind of business and enterprise nous to go and navigate your club's operations. And Chelsea have just found a way that's completely unique. And yeah, like props to them. Like I think they are going to get caught with something, and I think they know and they're going to expect it. But I think when it comes down to FFP, I don't think you go and buy the club, have to do all the accounts and the books and all that type of stuff, and then still go and and fall on the wayside when it comes to
in terms of Sorry, go on, KJ. Go on, bro.
I'm about to say they snitched on themselves for this very purpose.
Exactly.
Now
exactly.
UEFA think that it's like, oh, they're really kind guys, they're so honest. Now if they do something wrong, it's like, it's probably the mistake. They'll just give them a tap on the wrist. They know what they're doing. It's all calculated, people. It's all calculated.
They're smart. In terms of expectations, though, this conversation's come up a lot in the last few days. What should be looked at as a successful season, and what should they have to achieve in the next, say, 3 years as a football club? With what we can't ignore is they have invested £1 billion into their team in 2 years. They've bought quality players. They have a top manager. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world with a history of winning now. What should be the expectation, say, season 1 and over the next few years?
They've got to win everything. They've got to win everything. What? £1 billion? No, you can't get away with that. Listen, you can be as astute as you want. You can do all of that. And I hear it and I understand. But if that was my club, I'd have the expectation that in the next 3 to 4 years max, we have gone and either got to a Champions League final, but won the league and done everything. They can't do this and just be a top 4 club and win a couple of FA Cups on the way. You can't do that, because you know they're going to buy more players next season. and they've got the season after that, and the season after that, and the season after that. So if you spend $1 billion now, they're probably going to spend about $2 billion in do you know what I mean? Easily.
Long term, you're right. Long term, you're right. Long term, you got to win everything. You can't be investing all of this and not win anything. It's but if you're talking about this season and short term only, I'm still saying they need to challenge for a cup and secure top 4, secure Champions League football. And I say that because, bruv, if my child has got a heart disease and is expected to die in 6 months, if I go out and buy them a flipping Ferrari, the expectation is still they're gonna die in 6 months because I've only because I spent money doesn't mean it's changed the outcome so far. You know what I'm saying? Like they've spent all this money.
Yeah,
your analogies are mad, bro. Your analogies are mad,
KJ,
they've spent all this money and it's not an immediate change. It's not going to have an immediate change so far because it's very early in the process.
No, but KJ, they haven't gone and do you know what I mean? They haven't gone the Newcastle route where they're buying Harvey Barnes and buying Anthony Gordon and they're spending a lot of money. They've spent money on Caicedo, who people are telling me, do you know what I mean, there's the potential to be world class. Yeah. Enzo's the best in the world now, apparently. He's the best midfielder in the world. Do you know what I mean? Jackson, people are telling me, is the Drogba region. Like, this is what people are telling me. So if that's the case, if that's the case, I'm not even going to reveal any names, but listen, that's what I'm hearing. They've got Reece James, the best right back, Chilwell, the best left back. They've got Pochettino now. No, I'm sorry. Look, you see what you're saying there? That's I hear it. They've spent all the money, and look, if you're going to die in 6 months, that Ferrari's not going to help you. The difference is that they're buying these players, especially the players that are coming into the first team. We're not talking about the random players that they're buying, but these players because they feel in the next 2 to 3 years they're going to be the best. Otherwise, you don't go and spend that amount of money on these players.
Your analogy didn't land, but I get it. I get your point, right? So I get your point. It's almost the expectation just through buying all these players now doesn't change the season. Like, I agree. I don't realistically think they can win the Premier League this year. No matter what they've spent, they've got to gel it together. They've got to be given that time still. But I think this year they've got to qualify for the Champions League and they have to win a trophy for it to be a really successful season year one under Poch. I agree with JJ though. Over the next 3 to 5 years, I would say they've got to be winning Prems. They've got to be challenging nearly every year of that. And they've got to probably land another Champions League as well for that money and amounts, because spending money doesn't guarantee success, but spending money raises the expectations, because if you're spending money and if you're paying the wages, there has to be an expectation for success. Man United, this is why people don't get why I don't like the Glazers. Just for a minute, forget the rusting stadium, the piss on the floor, not upgrading facilities, not getting a new chef, even though the current one's probably good. That isn't that's a side dish. The issue is we have spent money, but who they have employed to run the club, manage the club, the scouting teams they put together has ultimately failed. They've spent it and failed, and that is a bigger issue than not spending it. Not spending it is there's still if we start spending money, maybe we'd win. When I look at Chelsea, you're spending the money. The expectation once you spend it is we now have to start winning. If you don't, you've wasted that money. So, and I think most Chelsea fans 110% get that. Now, do I think they should be considered, they've got to beat City to the title this year? No. It takes time to put this team together, and it might take 2 years to get them to their very best. But that progression has to be Champions League football, domestic trophies, build your way up to challenging for titles, and then sustain that level for multiple years like City have done, because you're spending that. That's why I'm so angry at my club, Man United, because we've spent as much as City and we are nowhere near that level. That is why the owners have got to go, because they've run it poorly, and we need people that could maybe do a better job. And yeah, big pressure on Chelsea. The 9 billion spread over 9 years. Yes, spread through 9 years. But if you don't think listen, between now and 9 years' time, I guarantee Chelsea spend at least another £1.5 billion in the next decade. You're gonna do easily. You're gonna.
But Terry, I think we've got to remember as well. You see, with Chelsea, look, we're not. Look, I don't think anyone's expecting them to win the league. I think we know. Look, it's a massive transition year for them. Embedding in the players and stuff. For this model to work, I guarantee you, Todd Bowley and co are banking on Chelsea making the Champions League. The amount of the revenue that the teams get from getting into the Champions League, they're going to need that for their accounts to make sense. Because if it don't work, and if Pochettino's sliding, do you know what I mean? By the time we hit in November times and they're 6, 7, I'm telling you now, they're going to do the same thing they've done with Potter and Tuchel, and it's going to be manager after manager because they need Champions League now. They're not in the same situation like Newcastle where they've got such a wide, berth for, money to spend, and they haven't spent any money in so long that they can, like Newcastle, if we're being honest, they got to the Champions League like a season early, if I'm being honest. Like they didn't expect it. I think they got in there and they're like, wow, we're here now, so great, we can go and spend. They're probably looking at this season as the year that Newcastle challenge for the Champions League. Chelsea need to do that this season. Otherwise, it's not going to work. No matter how you amortize and move the money about, it's just, it'll be curtains for Chelsea. So, yeah, good luck to you, man. Good luck.
Yeah, and you got to look at it this way, right? So I was reading something about Arsenal earlier today. So their typical match day revenue when they're not in the Champions League is around 80 million a year. Being in the Champions League this year, just the guarantee of the group stages raises their match day revenue by 25 million pounds. That's a lot of money. Plus, there's the Champions League money. Now, it depends how deep into the competition you go as an example, but it's anticipated an English club will earn, just through being in the group stages, an additional 50 million. So from an Arsenal point of view, we're getting the numbers through that this season in the Champions League is worth 75 million pounds more to them than not being in it. Now, when you're paying your players off via amortization, if Chelsea get back into the Champions League and start getting into the latter knockout stages regularly, you're looking at anywhere between 75 million to 100 million pound additional income. Plus, the sponsorship deals are worth more. So that's probably about another 10, 20 million. That extra 120 million pound a year, they do need to keep spending like this. Otherwise, there eventually will be a big hole that they can't fill. So that level of success is also needed to maintain. You're absolutely right. It all needs to happen.
You know what's funny about this whole Chelsea conversation? It's always about what if it don't work? What if it goes wrong? This can go wrong. That one. What if it actually works? Like, what if this actually works? And over the next 10 years, these contracts they gave out, the way that they've done things, secures them like 3 Premier Leagues and a Champions League and some cups. You know what I'm saying? We'll just look mad, and they might not even have to spend year after year after year. They probably will, but they might not even have to, because if the development of these players go the way that they want it to, they are also going to be looking like net spend FC after 5 years, because all they have to do is sell on their stars if they want to for big money, and then bring it in and repeat the process. So this could actually work, and if it works,
good on
how
them
many
now.
other teams we're going to see try and do the same thing?